Well, good evening, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever it is that you happen to be with this wonderful world of technology that we have now. We can be everywhere and at the same time and get together virtually. What we're going to talk about today is an important question, depending on where you are in your process of professional certification. We're going to talk about how do you determine which is the best professional certification for you to pursue, for you to go through the process of obtaining. And this is a decision that's very personal. Just because your friend chose a certain certification, just because your colleague chose a certain certification, just because your boss chose a certain certification, doesn't mean that that certification is the best one for you. It may have been the best one for them, for your boss. It may have been the best one for them 15 years ago, but that doesn't mean that it is the best certification for you right now. And so what we're going to talk about today are some of the things that you need to be taking into account to make certain that you're getting the right certification, the certification that's going to provide the most benefit to you as you go through your career. Now, you know, if you've done any research on this, that this is a significant investment. It's a significant investment financially in terms of the money for registration and studying. It's a significant investment for your time. And so with an investment that's as significant as it is, we need to make certain that it's a good investment and it's the right investment and it's going to provide the highest return on that investment for you. And again, as I've said, this is something that's very personal. Just because a certain certification was the best certification for somebody else doesn't mean that it's the best certification for you as well. And so what I've got a list here of a handful of different factors that we need to take into account as we're making this decision about what certification is best for you. And I've tried to, as I've been thinking through this and how to present it, it's not a perfectly clean bullet list. They kind of are connected to each other in a little bit. And so I'm going to try to keep it to the order that I have here, but you'll see that some of these things are kind of interconnected with each other in terms of what it is that we need to take into account. But the most important thing, I think, is really looking at your 3 to 5 year career plan. It's not a matter of finding the best certification for the job that you have right now. You want to start thinking about, where do you want to be in 3 years, in 5 years? What industry do you want to be working in? What job do you want to have within an industry, within a company? What country you want to be working in? And that's the certification that you need, the certification that's going to help you do what you want to do 3 to 5 years in the future. You don't need the certification that will help you get the job you have right now, because you already have that job right now. That's not something you're trying to get. You have that job. And so you don't want the certification for where you are right now. You want the certification for where you want to be a few years in the future. It's going to take you 12 months, 24 months to get your certification, to pass the exams, depending on which certification you choose and how many exams there are. But the time frame that we need to be looking at is, what do you want to be doing 3 to 5 years in the future? And sometimes you don't know specifically what you want to be doing 3 to 5 years in the future. And this is particularly the case if you've just recently graduated from university and you're in your first job and you don't know yet what you want to be doing 3 to 5 years in the future. You might be starting to think you don't want to be doing what you're doing right now, but you may not know what it is that you want to be doing and what is that career. If you think about all the careers that are out there in any field, accounting, finance, biology, history, whatever field it is, there are all kinds of jobs and industries that use those skills. And this is a little bit off the topic of certification, but one of the things to keep in mind, if you're an accountant and you're looking at what type of job you want and things like that, it may be that you can connect accounting as a job with one of the passions in your life. And the example I use, you may love music, but maybe you're not a very good musician. But music companies have accountants, musicians have accountants, the music industry has accountants. And so you may have graduated from university and say, I don't really like my job right now. I don't like the company, whatever it might be. But when you start thinking about what it is that you want to do, part of enjoying a job is it being connected to something you enjoy. And so you may think, hey, I want to be in the music industry. I want to work for a music company. I want to work for a musician. I love sports, but I'm not very good at it. But every sports team in the world has accountants. Sports equipment manufacturers have accountants. And so you can use some of those things that you enjoy doing as trying to narrow down perhaps an industry at least that you'd like to be working in. But you need to be looking 3 to 5 years and trying to visualize what you want to be doing. Now, I already said it's possible you don't know. I don't know. I don't know enough yet. I haven't done enough to find out what I love and what I don't love and what I'm good at and what I'm not good at. And so this kind of uncertainty leads to a second thing to consider, and that is whether or not you should be pursuing what I call a general certificate or a specialist certificate. And an example of a specialist certificate is certified internal auditor. The name is very descriptive. Should you do CIA? Well, do you want to work as an internal auditor? If the answer to that question is yes, you want to work as an internal auditor, then yes, you should do CIA. If the answer to that question is no, you don't want to work as an internal auditor, then there's no reason to pursue CIA. CFA, Chartered Financial Analyst. Do you want to work in investment banking? If not, then CFA is probably not going to provide a lot of benefit to you. That's probably not the certification that you want to pursue. On the other hand, there are a number of general certifications that don't narrow in on one particular skill set or one particular profession. An example of that, and I'll do some that are not US-based certifications, ACCA, CMA, okay, broad accounting, finance, management accounting certifications. With ACCA or CMA or CMA, you have a lot of opportunities available to you. It's kind of a general certificate. CMA does an excellent job of the skills that are needed to make decisions in a business. Budgeting, capital budgeting, pricing, costing, allocations, how much does it cost us to produce our product? Everybody needs to know that. And so if you're sitting there and you say, I don't really know what I want to be doing 3 to 5 years in the future, well, then you need a generalist. Don't pursue CIA, don't pursue CFA, don't pursue certified fraud examiner. Those are specialist certifications. And if you don't know that that's what you want to do, don't close those doors. Don't make your certification so narrow that it's only applicable in certain jobs. So CMA, CMA, ACCA, good general certifications. One of the things that I've learned in all the years I've been doing this is that a lot of people want to pursue more than one certification. After they finish one certification, their question is, what should I do now? Well, this idea of generalist certifications and specialist certifications is ideal in this situation. Let's say you've graduated a couple of years ago, you're in your first job, you don't really know what it is that you want to do. And so you pursue CMA. You want to keep all those options available. You've got some accounting, you've got some finance, very good how a business operates, wonderful consulting foundation for you. And then after you have a couple more years of experience and you begin to say, hey, you know, I really like corporate finance. I really like investment planning for individuals. Then you can start getting that specialist certification, certified financial planner, if you want to start working with individuals. So there's wealth management certifications. There's all kinds of specialty certifications, but you may not know when you're 23, 25 years old, which of those specialties you want to work in for your career. And so start with something a little more general. keep those options available to you in terms of what you want to do in the future. And say if you graduate, if you start your career, you're a year into your career and you study CIA and you become a certified internal auditor. Well, any certification is going to provide benefit to you, but it's obviously going to provide more benefit if you're trying to get an internal audit job. But if you've obtained CIA before you know if you like internal auditing, you're not going to get as good of return as you want. And so depending on where you are in your career, you may want a more general certification. And then a few years later, after your career is developed and it's become a little bit more of a niche, then you can get that specialist certification. Part of it is, or another way of looking at this is, let's say you start as an auditor. You go work for whatever audit firm. And when you're hired, you may work on clients from different industries. But then if you look at the higher levels in the hierarchy of your firm, you may notice that there's managers who specialize in one specific industry: the automotive industry, manufacturing industry, hospitality. Well, it's most likely that those individuals didn't start specializing their first day in the firm. They worked a few years, ended up on some jobs. They liked those jobs better. They had a little more skill set in that, whatever the case may be. And so you don't need to specialize right out of university. You need to have a little bit more of a foundation. So this question of a general or a specialist certificate. Another thing to consider, not quite as significant, I don't think, but something to consider is whether or not you're getting your certification for the skills that you learn or the reputation that an individual certification holds. And the example I'll use is CMA. Certified Management Accountant has what I believe is just a wonderful syllabus for how businesses operate. If I needed to hire somebody to operate a division of a business or a branch of a business or something like that, I know a CMA has the skills, they've learned the skills, they've been tested on those skills that really cover operating a business and the decisions that are made, from budgeting to costing to pricing to capital investment decisions, a little bit on internal controls. Those are good skills for making decisions within a business and understanding how the different pieces of a business go together for the business as a whole. There are other certifications that have tremendous reputation in the marketplace, but I'm not always certain that the skills they test, the skills that you learn, are always that applicable for what it is that you want to do. And I'll give an example here, and that's US CPA. I think US CPA is one of the most sought after certifications, one of the most highly regarded and most reputable certifications in the world. But if you look at the syllabus of the CPA exam, it's very possible that 3 of the 4 papers are completely irrelevant to what you want to do in your career. Now, maybe it's possible that even though what CPA covers isn't going to be relevant in your career, but it's possible that the job you're looking for, the job you want to have, it's a requirement. The company says CPA required, not CPA preferred, but CPA required. Well, in which case, if that's the job you want, and that's the certification that's required, that's the certification you need in order to achieve that goal, to reach that job that you're looking for. And so sometimes it's a balance. And again, this comes back to some extent where you are in your career. At the beginning, you may really be interested in learning the skills. Having the ability to say to a prospective employer, you may not know anything about my university. You may not have any sense of how rigorous my university accounting courses were, but I've passed this exam. And if I've passed this exam, you know the skills that I have. Okay. Now, skills and reputation sometimes overlap, kind of in the example that I just gave there. There is an element of the certification needs to be known enough that people feel comfortable that it did actually test what it is that you say you know. Now, another thing, realistically, the world we live in, you do need to take into account the required investment, both in terms of time that you're going to have to study and the money you're going to have to pay. Every time you register for an exam, there's a cost. And the registration is not cheap, which means the cost of not passing one of the exams becomes expensive because there's a significant cost to re-register and take that exam again. How many exams are there? What's the registration fee for each of those exams? If you get exemptions from some of the exams, do you still have to pay the exam fee for those exemptions? Okay, that's just a practical part of the decision. I know, and in different presentations and in different places I've spoken, to me, the return on investment for a professional certification is almost incalculable, because after you pass your certification and you get those letters after your name, you're going to make more money. You're going to get a bonus, you're going to get a raise, you're going to be able to move to a different company with a better salary, whatever. Somehow your salary is going to go up. But the thing is, you get that increased salary for the rest of your career. And so let's say, we'll just make up numbers. Let's say the total cost of studying for your exam, passing your exams and all of that is $3,000. Okay, might be more, might be less, but let's just say it's $3,000. And let's say that as a result of passing, your salary goes up $1,000 a year. Not a month, a year. And I think that that'll happen. That's a very low estimate for what the impact of your salary will be. And let's say you still have 25 years left in your career. So $1,000 for 25 years is $25,000. Cost you $3,000 to get that certification. Now, if that $1,000 a year is $2,000 a year, it becomes even more. I understand there's time value of money in the $2,000. 25 years from now is worth less than the $2,000 this year. But even if we take into account the time value of money, that is a wonderful ROI. But there is still the investment, the time and the money that you need in order to pass your exam. That's still a cost. If you don't have the money now to pay for the fees, it doesn't matter how much the return is, unfortunately, because you're not going to be able to take the exams. And so this required investment in terms of time and money leads into the last item on my list. And that is, what is the likelihood of you actually completing the exams? Because if you start, but don't finish the exams and you don't get certified, you may as well have not started. Okay, you're either a CPA or you're not a CPA. There is no category of almost CPA. Yeah, you can put on your CV that you passed 2 of the 4 parts. But if the job requires a CPA, you're not qualified. You're not a CPA. And so you need to make certain that whatever certification you begin, you're going to finish. And I'll give you a couple of examples of things that you need to be kind of looking for. The more exams there are, the greater the chance that something's going to happen and you're not actually going to be able to finish them. You move, you get married, change careers, whatever. The longer it takes, the more exams and the longer that time period is, the more likely there is that more chances there are that something's going to come up that's going to prevent you from actually finishing those exams. And that's one thing. Another thing is you need to check all of the syllabus. because maybe the early papers are something you enjoy and are easy, but the later papers may not be. And the example I give, and this is a personal example, is CFA, Chartered Financial Analyst. CFA level 1 is a wonderful exam. It's great. I love it. I love the syllabus. I think it's a great exam and all of that. And so if I was making a decision about what certification and I looked at CFA level 1, I'd say, this is great. But then when I look at level 2 and especially level 3, that's not for me. I'm not a math savant. That's not my gift in life, is doing the math. And so when I look at the books for CFA level 3 and the math that's in there, I'm not saying I couldn't learn it. I'm sure I could. How long would it take me? How much would I enjoy it? And so you need to make certain as you look at a certification that you look through all of it, because you don't want to get halfway through and say, wow, this is becoming very narrow focused. This is becoming a lot of depth and detail about something I don't care about. Because if I were to start CFA, I'd do level 1 and I'd say, oh, wow, this is great. I love this. I enjoy it. It's fun to study. I like the topics. Then when I get to level 2, it'd be when I get to level 3, I would just say, oh my goodness, it's going to take me forever to learn all of this. So how many exams? What's covered on all of the exam papers? Not just some of them, but all of them. If it's CPA, if you hate tax, one of the exams is taxes. One of the exams is auditing. You can't avoid that. And so you need to look at how many exams it is. Are the exams available on a flexible schedule? Or are they only certain times during the year? Because if they're only certain times during the year, every time you fail an exam, it adds 6 months or a year to how long it's going to take you to go through those exams. An example just in my career, when I took the CPA exam and passed it, and when I started teaching CPA, there were 4 exams, and you had to take those 4 exams in 2 days, Wednesday and Thursday. And it was twice a year. And that was it. Okay. Now, when my dad took CPA, there were 5 parts, 2.5 days. But now CPA exam is you take one at a time. So when I was looking at CPA, anytime you failed an exam, it added 6 months to when you could take it again. Now it's much more frequently you can take the CPA exam. So all of these things about the number of exams, how often it's given, when it's given, where it's given, things like that, all factor into how likely it is that you will actually complete the certification that you have chosen. Because as I said at the beginning of this point, if you complete 8 of the ACCA papers, if you complete 2 of the CPA papers, if you do level 2 of CFA, you're not certified. And you're not going to get that same return on your investment. You spent all that time, you spent all that money, but without the letters, without the actual certification, you're not going to get the bonus. You're not going to get the salary. You're not going to get the raises that you're thinking you would get. And so kind of wrapping this up, and then we'll have time for questions if anybody has any questions. This question of which certification you should pursue, what it is that you should try to obtain, it's a personal question to you. This is a question for you. It's not your colleagues, it's not your friends, it's not your boss, it's not your parents that whatever certification they got is what you should get. You need to take into account the career. What is it you want to do with your career, and which certification is most likely to help you achieve that? Give you the skills that you need to achieve that, to perform those jobs. It may be that there's a requirement. In some countries, CPA, if you want to be an audit partner, you need to be a CPA. Excuse me. If you want to sign somebody else's tax return, you have to be a CPA. So there may be some situations where the law dictates what certification you have. In your country where you are, there may be certain laws or requirements for certain positions to have certain certifications. But all of this, you need to make certain that the certification is going to help you achieve what it is that you want to do with your career. Your boss maybe wanted to do something different. Your colleague wants to do something different. Your friends want to be doing something differently in a few years than what you want to be doing. So don't let other people's decisions about this question for themselves become your decision for this question about yourself. The question is, what certification should you pursue? And you are the only person that can answer that. You're the only person who knows what it is you want to be doing 3 to 5 years from now. You're the person who's able to determine what is that certification that's best able to help you achieve what it is that you want to achieve. I hope that in this discussion, you have some more kind of things to think about and things to consider to make certain that you do get the certification that's going to provide the return that you need. But ultimately, this is your decision. And you need to determine what you want to do in your career. And that will help you determine which certification is the best to help you achieve that.